Good morning, dear friends. It's such a joy to be here. I miss coming here on Sundays. I want to say good morning to everyone that is watching at home, maybe later. So, welcome everyone. This part of the gospel, the yoke, is a wonderful reflection for us. It could invite us to reflect about our needs and the benefits of Jesus' guidance. So, for information, a wooden crosspiece that is fastened over the neck of two animals and attached to the plug or cart. So Jesus in that time used words that could connect with the people, and they use words that the people understand. So it's a metaphor to help people to understand. This piece of equipment help the animals to walk alongside, have some guidance. And the yoke of Jesus invites us to get involved in his lessons. So his lessons will be guiding us in our walk in the way of our progress. And he invites us to share with him the load and become less burdensome with him. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And Matthew 11:28-30 says, "Come unto me, all you who suffer and are overburdened, and I will comfort you. Take my yoke upon you, and learning from me that I'm gentle and humble of heart, and you'll find the rest, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So Jesus said it to us, an invitation. Come unto me. It's just an invitation, a gentle invitation. It's not an imposition. He doesn't say, come right now. He just invites us. And he has been inviting us for a long, long time. And he wants us to benefit from his lessons. When we learn Jesus' lessons and learn to apply these lessons in our life, and learn to rely on his strength, and help us to rest in our moments of difficulties. And most importantly, his invitation is to remind us we don't need to do alone. Because when we do alone, it's too heavy. Have you experienced sometimes you have a lot of burden? And I don't know you, sometimes I forget to pray. And then I remember, and then I pray and ask Jesus' help. It helped me tremendously renew my strength. So that's the invitation. He wants us to be reminded we are not alone. And if we follow his guidance, our journey is going to be a lot lighter. So all types of suffering, such as misery, disappointment, physical pain, loss of a loved ones, find consolation in the face in the future and in trust and God's justice, which Christ came to teach humankind. On the other hand, upon those who expect nothing after this life or who simply doubt, afflictions bear down with all the weight and no hope comes to soften their bitterness. This is what led Jesus to say, "Come unto me, you who are weary, and I'll give you comfort." You. And this is wonderful because in the gospel, the way Allan Kardec compiled the lessons, this chapter coming right after the blessed are the afflicted. Because in that chapter, we learn all the afflictions and explain to us how the afflictions disturb our peace, what is affliction in the first place, but give us an immense understanding that there is a way to suffer. There is a way for us to learn how to handle the afflictions. And when we learn the purpose, the lesson, the affliction dissolve, and the learning help us to grow. So educate us. And the most important lesson in this chapter that I find is so consoling Spiritists bring it to us, the understand of immortality. Because many times the afflictions we have, we don't understand it. And if I look at just for this lifetime, make no sense. There is no hope. And in these chapters in the gospel, blessed are the afflicted, and the Christ the Consoler. Here comes Spiritism to console us, to talk about the immortality, that we are going to have other lives, to learn it, to redeem ourselves, and we are in our progress. So the invitation that he gives us is to understand that when we learn his lessons in our journey of evolution, our path can be softened, even though we experience affliction, but we have an understanding where that comes from and the purpose of it, and put in perspective, knowing that we are immortal beings. And that's what we are going to talk about it. And there is also in this lesson an invitation through his teaching. There is a passage in our daily bread that says, through this direct teaching, Jesus helps us to see the importance of his gospel in a safe road to achieving the true happiness. And is clarified by Emmanuel. In facing the truth, we can present ourselves with a voluminous baggage of debits from the dark past. However, from the instant we yield to the Lord's will, by sincerely accepting the obligation of our own regeneration, we are heading to a different spiritual realm, where the yoke is easy and the burden is light. We can only understand that when we understand the purpose of our immortality, and that is the light the Spiritists bring it to us. When he explained to us that we come into this lifetime with a baggage. We were created simple and ignorant, and through many incarnations, we start to create some baggage. And we are learning in our progress. So that's the way we learn in this path of progress. With the experience, sometimes we make an error and create some consequences, right? And the invitation for Jesus is say, when we align our will and put our will under God's will, and respect the laws and accepting our responsibility for our regeneration. So we enter a different realm. We get out of this materialistic understanding and viewpoint that when we are in affliction with no hope, there is no other life. If someone that does not believe in reincarnation, there's no sense of immortality, and think that's it, creates a very hard burden. So when we enter to this perspective of our immortality and accept that we are in a path of our own regeneration, we enter in a spiritual realm. And that's when the yoke is easy and burden is light under the guidance of Jesus. And also, the word here, sincerely accepting the obligation of our regeneration. Sometimes we have a lot of understanding intellectually, and there is a moment that we accept emotionally in here in our heart. When we truly accept and understanding our responsibility for regeneration. Many times we pray for God, expecting that miracle, wow, take me out of here right now. But sometimes it's not this way. It's a journey in our progress. And you sincerely accept the obligation of our own regeneration. What I understand for that, we are celebrating now in October 19 years of our center, right? 19 years together here. Consider I was like 1 year and a half, 2 years before. So I consider myself a 20 years that I've been listening to the gospel, and took me that long to start really practicing, because it's a journey. It has been for me a journey to understand. First you understand in the teaching, then you slowly start putting practice, and you start to realize, wow, it's not easy. And no wondering we have been hearing that for 2,000 years, and we're still learning how to put in practice. So it requires a sincere acceptance of this obligation, our own regeneration, and learn and take responsibility to really come to Jesus, not just listening to Him. So there is a difference in listening and understanding, but really coming to Him and putting practice. And so that has been my goal in this lifetime, to learn to put in practice. So Christ says, "Blessed are the afflicted, for shall be consoled." But how can anyone feel fortunate if they do not know why they suffer? Spiritists show the cause of suffering and explain the objective behind suffering by showing it as a salutary process which produces a cure and also a means of purification. So it's very important. I suggest it. I know you have read many times, Blessed are the afflicted, but I always, when I have a little awakening in the study, I go back and read it again, because every time I take myself to read again one of the Beatitudes, I see more. It is amazing how profound the teachings, and I read a little more and have the understanding. And that helped me also in the moments that everything is dark, everything is difficult, and for some reason, I don't know what to do. And then I'm reminded, I need to learn something. There is a purpose. How can I take responsibility for pick myself up? And how can Jesus can help me to find a solution for what I'm experiencing? And when I open my mind and I allowed the teaching of Jesus, I reminded myself of the teaching of Jesus. I'm holding His hand. I'm coming to Him, and He's right there. And give me some light in my path. Where shall I go? And that's when it becomes easy for me. Many times I forgot, and become very difficult. But as soon as I remember Jesus, and I remember He's showing me the route, He have me a guideline, He is my model and guide, I immediately got myself in the path of the regeneration. And when they say a cure is something very interesting to look at, because it requires to have faith what I'm experiencing, and trust, and have the faith that no matter what's put in front of me is for my own growth. It's for me to learn something in the progress, and for me to take a responsibility for my own regeneration, so I can get even more the practice of the gospel in my life. So that's a shift in the responsibility that benefits and make it all the difficulties a little lighter. Nevertheless, Jesus placed one condition on the assistance and happiness they promised to the afflicted. The condition is found in the law He teaches. His yoke is the observance of that law, but this yoke is easy and the law is gentle, since it imposes love and charity as a duty. So it is our awakening for us to understand that what Jesus came to us here, when He was there in the Mount of Sinai, saying all the Beatitudes for us, and promised us a kingdom of heaven, and depend on the way we love and do charity as a responsibility in our own generation. So that's the condition. Many times when we are coming to Jesus and follow His lessons, but we want to do only for us, only in that little shadow, a little restricted space, just for me, just for my family. It doesn't work this way. And for us to have a condition of assistance, we need to broaden it up so we can look at you and you and you. We are all brothers and sisters. And the path is to learn how to love and do the goodness we can every single day as our duty. And with that, we are immediately immersed in the law that guides us, the guidance of Jesus guides us. The yoke to which Jesus relates is precisely His doctrine, the knowledge and the practice of the rules of well-being set forth in the Sermon of the Mountain. The spiritual revelation is that the practice of love, the duties of charity, the awareness of the principle of the eternal laws and their possible observance spread the heights of Sinai. So this is a comment from the book. I don't think it's translated, but it's a wonderful book. It's an invitation to study. One says, all that Jesus invited us, and Spiritism come and explain how to. Jesus promised us a consoler, and Spiritism come to bring light for the consolation that Jesus promised us, and understanding the law and the duties of charity, have the awareness of the principle of the eternal laws and their observance and practice. So we becoming aware, do we are immortal beings? There is a purpose for us to be here. It's an invitation for us to learn to walk and understanding that we are here for a brief moment. Our true life in a spiritual realm. And this incarnation is just an opportunity for us to progress. So accepting the difficulties that present itself for us, learning to apply the laws for us to be consoled and support and have strength, because the goal is for us to overcome the obstacles and learning how to put in practice the law of love among our brothers and sisters. Get out of this restricted awareness that is what's mine and this is yours. It's not my fault, it's yours. Get out of that and being aware that we are all brothers and sisters, all of us with the same difficulties, with the same afflictions, and the path to learn how to apply the laws in life. So the invitation is for us. Since then, he's saying invitation, because when he spoke in the heights of the Sinai, he was talking to afflicted people that were eager to learn about justice, about love. They were suffering. They had no consolation. Sounds familiar? The world need that words today, right? I was chosen. I was watching. Chosen again. I discovered their highlights in Portuguese. Oh boy, I understood so much better because the language is not easy, isn't it? And I'm listening again, and I was crying, just crying, to see the beauty of the Beatitudes in the moments. Matthew said to him, can you say a little more consoling words? Because everything you say here is kind of hard. Take your hands off to eliminate your things, And you say, okay, I got it now. And he says, you're the salt of the earth. And tears come into Matthew's eyes. And he reminds us, we are child of God. We are all brothers and sisters. We are here to learn. And when we apply the lessons of Jesus in our life, becoming easier. Because sometimes we look at each other and we have some differences, right? And sometimes we forget that it's our responsibility to take care of our heart. We are not here to judge others. And he said, go and reconcile with your enemies, because up to then, without any consolation, and it was, you hurt me, I hurt you, and that's the end of it. There was no justice, there is no love, there is no charity. So this all get us together to look at each other in the eyes and say, we are brothers and sisters. Like they said in the text, and the text is opening, we inherit the universe. We need to be part of it to create the fraternity, the love, and justice that everybody is looking for and is in need for. And there is no other way. The lessons of Jesus, for us to have his assistance, we need to learn it to practice love. And this is sometimes very difficult, but it is important, and the duties of charity. And we are going to see some viewpoints about that, because there are eternal laws for us to understand. Under Jesus' protection and guidance, we acquire moral strength that free us from old habits that keep us tied to the ground of imperfection. In this regard, the spirit orientation provides us with the key to understand of the Mass of Christ, necessary to our own true happiness. And that's what we're talking about. When we accept Jesus' guidance, having him as a model for us to reflect, and under his protection and guidance, we acquire the force, the strength, the willpower we need to overcome all the habits. Alone we cannot do it, it's too hard. And many of us are tied up with so many imperfections and having the idea that that's the way it is, accepting that. And some of us even get addicted to that. And it's very hard to let it go. But the Spiritists give us the orientation, the understanding that there is no other way. It requires us to do what San Agostino said for us every day. We need to check and see what I have done today. Did I hurt Fatima today? Is there anything I can do to repair? Has anything against me today? So it started creating our heart and understanding the true happiness is when I get aligned with the law of love and charity. I cannot pray for God, ask forgiveness when I'm very infuriated with David. It doesn't work this way. It opens up an understanding about fraternity and responsibility. And most importantly, when we acquire Jesus' guidance, starting follow his lessons that free us, the freedom that we get from the suffering is worth every study, every dedication that we have to learn. And sometimes we need to read, study, to practice it. Practice it, go back to read because you didn't practice it well, and requires this back and forth for us to learn, because the regeneration is in our heart, is not in our intellectual. I understand all the Beatitudes in my head. Makes so much sense and touch so great. But to put everything in practice is a journey. That's why we need his guidance and protection. It is important to emphasize that if Christ speaks of his yoke, is because there are others, such as the lower passions previously noticed. Under this condition, the person runs the risk of being indifferent to the good, preferring to stay in the insolent life, is then subjugated by swing all the selfishness that nourishes its existence. Unfortunately, we have so many things out there that grabs our attention, and many times we need to really make an effort to becoming aware and stay awake through the lessons of Jesus. So many forces calling us, the social media call us and distract us with such a powerful way. So many times running for our power and what I want to conquer in the materialistic viewpoint really takes away for us, take a risk for us to be indifferent to the goodness and to the law of love and charity. We need to be aware of that. Of course, we need to dedicate our means, our time to conquer everything we need for our existence, but keep ours the perspective of an immortal being. And our purpose is to learn and to practice the law, justice, and charity. When we embrace these two realms together, prioritizing our spiritual growth, we can feel how much easier it is, our journey. The tenderness expressed in coming to me indicates the possibility of releases from the burdens of trials. It is a sincere appeal that resembles outstretching hands, fraternal embrace, on wiping away tears, to offer a friend's shoulder, as well manifestation of relief, comfort, and protection. So much tenderness, there's so much vibration of loving coming to this or coming to me. And he especially talked about when we are suffering overburden. overburdened. And so many times we carry so much baggage in our shoulder. And many times we take even the heavy weight from people that is not ours. We are a little confused yet what's our responsibility, you know? And many times we have that feeling that we carry the world in our shoulders and get us so tired. And when we started paying attention and practicing the laws that Jesus is teaching us and accept his invitation, we let it go of this oppression that we feel from the material perspective, the material life provides, that forced need to be the best, to be number one, too much, right? And when we decided to meet Christ, eventually we started having more discernment. When we prioritize our spiritual growth, we started having more discernment and double checking all this force from the materialistic viewpoint that sometimes grab our attention, and many times we stay right there. So require us to really put in perspective to start our own regeneration. And with Jesus' help, we can let it go a lot of this. Take my yoke upon you and learn it from me, that I'm gentle and humble of heart. And that invitation, when we start studying the lessons and put in practice, many times, many of us has those thoughts, I cannot do it. I'm not worthy. I must be perfect. I cannot make a mistake. I'm not good enough. Nobody loves me. All these concerns can be habits and can be addicted, some distorted thoughts. And when I read it, that came to me, because sometimes we have some distorted thoughts, and I remember how powerful the thoughts are. Everybody's aware how powerful our thoughts are. And we start harboring those thoughts. But as soon as we connect with Jesus, we got a reminder that we are his brother. I'm his sister. And we got a reminder that we have a loving Father. And we got a reminder that our Father is the source of an immense love and mercifulness that fill our heart. So we started to drop all those distorted thoughts that kept us in prison, in a lot of suffering, in a lot of affliction that is necessary because we just forgot that we are here for a moment and our job is to do this and learn a new perspective, learning to live in a spiritual realm that is abundant love from our Father, that from him, in connection with Jesus, that he's one with God, we can have our heart embraced. And that's why walking with him, we understand, can be more gentle. We learn to be more gentle with us. It is important not to be subject ourselves to pseudo needs by the ego that, being fictitious and transient, stuns the sense, poison feelings, obliterate reasoning, and put obstacles to our spiritual improvement. So the light of Jesus helps us to free ourselves from these fake needs from the ego. Is the ego is telling you, go there, you gotta be perfect, you need to do this, otherwise you're not gonna be worth it. So free ourselves from these obstacles. They are true obstacles, those thoughts, distorted thoughts coming from the ego that is blocking our spirit improvement. Learning to free ourselves from those thoughts, regenerating our heart, because the light of Jesus, the connection with him and his guidance immediately bring lights to our heart that illuminate our mind, and we becoming aware, wow, I'm not those thoughts. They are just thoughts, and they are not good ones. I can change and use my willpower. That is one of the most strengths we have, and use our free will to choose different thoughts. to choose different perspective to enter in the spiritual realm. Because when I'm locked and in prison in that ego thoughts, I'm in a prison, in the materialistic prison, right here. And Jesus helped us like a key. That's why he's gentle, because he opened the door from the spiritual realm. Look, you are an immortal being. You are not this, that, in this present moment. And all that things that we experience, I need to be seen, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, all those conflicts that generate that, it started to dissolve, because the source of our strength comes from Jesus. That's why I like metaphors. I like Jesus' connection. It's like a Wi-Fi. When it's fragmented and you start doing this, I get nowhere in life. So I like wide connection. And I have that wide connection. It's like a GPS, a spiritual GPS that guide me. So when I thought like that, I need to be seen, because if you like this talk, I'm gonna feel great. When I have that, it's fragmented. I realize, my Wi-Fi is fragmented. And I like that metaphor. I immediately say, what I need to do to connect, full blast connection with Jesus. Just reminded, I need to be a little bit more humble and come into this place inside of me. There is a connection, this altar inside of me. And a moment that I quiet myself and connect with Jesus, he remind my purpose, he remind my duties, and my connection is, and then my path is light again. So all these thoughts and imperfections that disturb us, his fault, not fault, because when I'm in these ego kind of thoughts, I immediately want to say, it's your fault. You see, I'm not happy. You see what you did to me. I'm not happy. It's your fault, not fault. It was not me. I become defensive, and all that separate me from my brothers and sisters. So we get out of this victimism and start to take responsibility for our true happiness, because it's not what's happening to us. It's how we handle what's happening to us. And Jesus help us, giving us strength for us to handle our difficulties. So we get out of this, the idea that we have enemies, the idea that Carlos is against me. That's why I'm stuck. This boss is really cutting me off. I cannot progress. And he started creating this here, that created this here. Been there, done that, right? So we get out of this idea that we have enemies, and we start obeying their laws and the teaching of Jesus. Go and reconcile. Do your part, because we know we have the responsibility for our choices, our actions, our free will come alight with Jesus' teaching. So we're more careful with our decisions, because we know we have responsibility for our well-being. And with all that, we stop that fight outside and start to do the good fight that he teaches us, for us to fight our own selfishness and pride that separates us and impede us to practice the law of love. So moral delay makes the spirit a slave of inferior passions, where pride and selfishness establish a reign of desolation. However, freed from their inferior appeals, make an option for the love of Christ. It is verified that his yoke liberates and protects, because it's based on love. If anybody needs a little map, this is it for me. I can delete. If I stay in this, I prefer to blame you in that kind of paradigm. I'll continue slave from my selfishness and my pride. However, if I want to get out of this, follow teaches lessons and apply that in our life, liberates and protects us, because we are going to start to learning how to love. Diminish the volume of selfishness and pride and put a little high volume in our way of practicing love. We are more aware of our intentions. We are more deliberate in our choices, and we are using our free will to learn to love ourselves in actions and love our brothers in actions. And it's a shift in consciousness. A disciple thought a Christian teacher and asked him for an opinion about freedom. The noble friend, with a heart marked by the experience of the world, thought for a long moment and answered, "If you still do not know the teachings of Christ, you are free to do whatever you like. But if you have already accepted the lesson of Jesus, you are free to do what you should." And that is very clarifying for us that if we're still attaching to our suffering and somehow experience suffering, we can learn to detach from those wounds. We are learning to recreate our choices and stop doing what we like. And many times in our rebellion spirit, we want to do what we want, but to do what is right thing to do, what we should do regarding and aligned with the law of love. It is necessary that human being prioritize his happiness, orienting himself the power of love. When Jesus says, "Come to me and I'll give you relief," he stressed that the strength of the love is the only one capable of producing last and peaceful joy. And that's the secret. The strength of love is the only way. I cannot just look for my well-being. I needed to include you, and you. All my actions has to include the goodness of others. And that's why the power of love is so phenomenal. Have you experienced sometimes you have a little something with someone and you don't want to harbor that and you really fight against, I don't want to do, I want to practice. And sometimes just get near this person, just say hi with a sincere flow of love, and immediately wash everything away. And then you realize that person is going through a bad moments. Like I was another day and someone looked at me with that kind eyes. So we need to help one another based on love. And this is a process for us to learn. Jesus went to the crowd of the afflicted and discouraged, proclaiming the divine purpose to alleviate them. "Come to me," a love invitation. But no, the afflicted renounce the object of their despair, and not all of the sad want to flee in the shade, to inquire where is the light. And this is us many times. We didn't want to let it go, the things that were creating the affliction in the first place. And many of us could not do the healing we need to do because we just couldn't yet. Require faith and the desire to progress. Most discouraged people even try to satisfy their criminal caprices with the protection of Jesus, issuing strange prayers. However, when the sufferers sincerely address the Christ, they will hear him in silence of the inner sanctuary, inciting their spirit to despite reprehensible disputes from the bottom field, reserving to them the gospel powerful light to the indispensable renewal. So there is a moment that all of us, one day, will get there. We get to this place in here and sincerely ask for the help of Jesus. All of us. It's going to be a powerful moment that all of us, because Jesus promised not one of his sheep is going to be unattended. So this is the invitation. And of course, in the question 6 to 5, and the Spirit spoke, what is the perfect standard that God has offered to humankind as guide and model Jesus? Only Christ spreads such a joy and strength on earth. So the invitation for our study is to live the best we can according to Jesus' lessons and help us in our path of regeneration. Good day for you guys.